This is just a quick introduction to the course. This is Database Administration 2, the follow-on to Info 365 Database Administration 1. In Info 365, we used MariaDB to demonstrate the concepts of database administration. So in Info 210, you probably learned a little bit more about SQL. Maybe you learned some Oracle. You learned a little bit about Oracle, but along the way, you probably learned some SQL. And then in 365, we start to get more into the database administration tasks, like how we administer a SQL server, some of the concerns with supporting applications and importing data and things that, day-to-day tasks that a system administrator would have to do with a database. And then in Database Administration 2, we get into, we talk more about and just demonstrate how to do user authentication and how to do advanced user authentication through other services and things like that. And then we get into some other topics like clustering and high availability and so forth. So the textbook for this class, it's a very simple textbook. It's available for free online. You can get it for free through the Drexel bookstore, I think, or through the Drexel website for CCI. But it's not a bad book. It's very practical. It's not a typical textbook. So to that end, while a lot of the material is from Mastering MariaDB, which walks us through a lot of the topics for this course, we're also going to use the MariaDB resources as well. So there's all these resources, all this documentation from MariaDB. It's an open source database engine, so there's lots of free information out there. So I'll frequently make use of that as well. So I'll probably be posting some, web pages that we'll review from the MariaDB website when we start getting into some of the advanced topics. So Mastering MariaDB, it's written for an older version of MariaDB, so sometimes things might be a little bit different. We might have to go to MariaDB's website to see how to do some of this stuff, but it's a good skill to have, right? Being able to find that information from these resources online. So we'll certainly do that. So a big part of this course is going to be 6 short projects. So throughout the term, we're going to do some different projects. So due at the end of week 1 will be basically just installing MariaDB server in your Google Cloud environment. I have a video that's going to show you how to do that. So you just have to follow the steps and walk through that video, and it'll show you what to do. But basically, and we're going to make some snapshots of our database once we do that so that we can make copies of it and always go back. But along with that, there's also a demonstration database I'm going to use for this course. It's based on the database that we used in Info 365. If you didn't take Info 365 yet, or if you took it a long time ago and we used a different database, that's fine. I have a database file that you'll be able to recover, and you'll be able to import a database file to start from the same place as students who are Info 365. And then in week 3, we're going to try to set up an LDAP server and try to use MariaDB's authentication plugin for LDAP. So, and I'll talk more about that when we get into the next unit, but when we get into week 2. But that project's going to start in week 2 and end in week 3. So you have 2 weeks to do that project. So it's going to be a little bit longer than the first one, obviously. But again, that's to demonstrate how frequently with databases, we have to support other authentication mechanisms. If you can support LDAP, that means you can support Active Directory, because Active Directory supports LDAP. So that means we can use something like Active Directory for authentication to MariaDB, which is pretty powerful, right? Single sign-on. And in week 4, we're going to do at the end of week 4 will be just a very simple project about logging and debugging. We're just going to play around with that a little bit. That's going to be right before the midterm exam. And then after the midterm, so week 6 and 7, which is after the midterm, so really you'll have almost 3 weeks to work on query optimization. So it's going to be a little bit longer of a project. And then finally on week 9, second to finally, week 9, we're going to talk about sharding, and we're going to do a little project around that. And then a slightly larger project with high availability, we're going to try to set up our MariaDB server with replication and clustering. So we'll learn about that and see if we can configure that. So that's 6 projects altogether for this course. And I'll talk more about the projects as we go through the course. We'll see how we go. I'm hoping I don't have too much, I didn't bite off more than we can chew here with these projects. So we'll kind of play it by ear and see how these go. But these are the 6 that I have planned. And the reason I have these 6 projects is, number one, each week I'm going to have some reading that you're going to do in the MariaDB book, but I'll probably also have some supplementary reading periodically along with the lecture videos. The lecture videos will probably be a little bit shorter in this class than you might be used to, because a lot of our time is going to be spent on the projects with that sort of hands-on learning. And I'll have longer videos usually for those projects. For those of you who've taken my classes before, you're probably familiar with my videos for projects can be pretty lengthy sometimes. So I wanted to minimize what we're doing with lectures and try to shift that to the project. But I will have a discussion each week. So each week there'll be a discussion, not every week, right? So weeks 2 and 3 is one discussion. Week 4 will be a discussion. Week 6 and 7, and then 8 and 9, and then finally 10. So it's going to be 6 discussions altogether. So they kind of align with the projects more or less, the discussions. But there'll be a discussion topic. It'll be above and beyond the project. So I'll kind of bring up a topic that we can discuss. And if you've taken my classes before, you'll know that I don't expect you to answer the question when I provide a topic. What's more important to me is that you're talking to other students, that you're engaging with other students about the material. So I don't feel like you have to go in and answer the question. There may only be 1 or 2 good answers to the question. Instead, you can discuss the question, right? I'm going to give you topics that you can discuss more. You can find examples, or you can get into a little bit more detail, or talk about your experience at work or something like that, or an experience at a co-op or another class. So that'll be the discussion questions. And then, of course, the projects are going to be a big part of your grade, right? So 60% of your grade in this class is going to be those projects. Only 10% is discussion. And then the remaining 30% is going to be the midterm and the final. So it's really important to work on those projects. And you can see they're weighted a little bit differently, right? So project 2 is probably going to be one of the longer ones. So it's 15%. And project 6 is also a bit longer. So that's 15% as well. And then you've got some other smaller projects, peppered around it. So project 1 and 3 are relatively short. They're only going to take you an hour. Project 2 will probably take you anywhere from 3 to 6 hours. So that's why it spans 2 weeks. Project 4 and 5, I'm thinking should take you about 2 hours. And then, of course, project 6 is another one. It's 3 to 6 hours, which is, I may try to push that one back a little bit. So we might shift project 4 and 5. I may eliminate one of those just so that we can make sure we have plenty of time to get to that project. But again, we'll play this by ear and we'll see how you guys do as we go through the class. But that's it. So that's the grading rubric. So it's 10% discussion, 60% project, 30% assessment from the midterm and the final. I'm going to try to make the weeks in Blackboard mirror what you see on the schedule. So normally in Blackboard you have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. In this class there'll be a 1, and then another area for 2 and 3, then a 4, then a 5, then a 6 and a 7, then an 8, 9, then a 10. So you're only going to have those 7 content areas, including, and then the final, of course, being the 8th. And if you have any questions about the class or questions about the course in general, feel free to reach out to me. My information is in Blackboard. You can text me, you can call me. Probably texting and calling is best. I travel a little bit during the week, so sometimes it's hard to check my Drexel email, but I also have an alternative email that I'll post in the announcements. That way you can use that if you need to. And if you have any questions, let me know. Thank you.